Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Game Art Talk podcast. My guest today is Sanchez, who's currently a lead artist at MachineGames. Hey there.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was kind of a long run to get here, right? Some back and forth. We
Yeah,
both have busy lives. Yeah. So yeah, how's it going? How's life?
all good, man. All good over here in Sweden now. Finally, spring coming
Oh yeah, yeah.
after the very long. I don't know. You're in Germany, right?
I live in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the winter as harsh as in Sweden, or
Yeah.
I
No, it's
guess?
not that harsh. It's more like gray and gray in April.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sun doesn't come out, and yeah, I was in Uppsala 1 year ago.
Oh, really?
I was in Stockholm with my girlfriend, and I told her, "Hey, there is a cool game studio in Uppsala, and the city looks kind of nice.
Yeah.
Let's go there." Yeah, and we also went into the off. I was standing right in front of the office of Machine Games, but it was like after New Year's Eve, and I think nobody was in there. So
Yeah, probably not.
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite funny actually when people come around for interviews and stuff like that. They
Uh-huh.
don't know like actually Machine Games is on top of a
Of a
mall.
shopping center. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's very convenient, especially for the winter. So, like, if you need to buy something from the grocery shop or the supermarket, you can go downstairs and get it. So it's it's quite
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, that's
It's
true.
weird but nice. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, when you go to the elevator, there's like supermarket, and then there is Machine Games above it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Game development and supermarkets.
yeah. Yeah, all right. So maybe give us a short introduction. Like, how old are you? Where are you from?
Yeah.
Where
So,
have you been working? How this like all start out in the games industry?
well, as you say, my name is Aji Sanchez. I'm originally from Spain. So my family comes from the Canary Islands. And I live a big chunk of my life in Spain, and then I move around as well. I lived in Portugal, I lived in the UK, and then Sweden as well. I'm 37 at the moment, and yeah, I've been working in games for like I don't know, like 13 years now. It must be around that. I started back in Spain because I come from like a background of journalism. I went to university to actually study journalism, and I spent a lot of time. Like I spent like 6 years studying. I never finished my degree, but like one thing led me to the other, and I ended up like doing motion graphics for like TV channels. And then there was a particular moment where I actually had to create something. It was like a box rotating like a crate, and I didn't know any 3D. I was like, maybe it's about time to actually learn this. And then yeah, I jump into 3D thinking I will do animation like movies, but I never realized like the Castlevania games were made in Spain. So uh, some friends of mine brought over like Castlevania, Lost of Shadows, and I started like actually playing, and I was like, "Fuck, this is really good." And then I learned that these were all people that came from Piro, which is like the old studio that used to do Commandos, and there was a lot of talent in that studio. Yeah, applied, got a job, and then start working in games. That's the beginning.
Okay, so what? So what was your first yeah, video game industry experience? Like, where did this all start at? Which company?
It was called, it's still going, called Mercury's team, and it was
Hmm.
I joined as a texture artist actually. So I joined as a very specific job, which is something when I was studying, because I did like a 6 month course for like 3D animation and stuff. And like one
Hmm.
of the things that I always liked was texturing. It was like the best for me. Once you have done everything, you unwrap and everything, and it's like, okay, let's texture these. Let's make sure that this looks good, and they really liked my portfolio back then. It was like a student portfolio, but like I still think like some stuff was pretty decent for the time. And I got a job, and I started working on a 3DS game. It was a Castlevania Mirror of Fate. It wasn't
Hmm.
like like AAA or super realistic graphic. It was quite the opposite. It was like a bit cartoonish. And it was very interesting because like all textures basically were done by two people the whole game, and
Crazy.
yeah, it
What
was. Sorry, go
was it
ahead.
like? Was it like complete Photoshop stuff, or
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you
yeah.
have any other tools back then?
Yeah, no, no. Back then it was like Photoshop.
Okay.
It was only Photoshop, so we were doing everything in Photoshop, like even characters, because we were doing everything. We were doing like props, tileable textures, characters, everything. The only thing we had was the Cinema 4D and yeah, Cinema 4D for like fixing the seams. I think that's what we used.
Mm.
And yeah, we started using 3D code a little bit as well because it was quite useful for like having a bit more of a like that sort of look or like hand painted and stuff. But it was mostly like photo source and then paint over on top. So
Okay. Nice, man. A
and
long
then
time ago, huh?
yeah, I feel like an old man saying this shit. Because after that, I got moved to the AAA quality or AAA game where that was Castlevania: Lords of Shadows 2, and that was all done in Photoshop. But by then, that was the time when like Quixel released Endo and all that, and even though like it wasn't that much of a game changer, we didn't use it that much. We still used Photoshop. It was quite weird because at the time, like I don't remember like that many studios that actually had like a fully dedicated like texture department, and the
Hmm.
texture department that we had there was like 8 people in total, so it was quite big for what it was.
Hmm.
Um, and again, like our job was doing everything. We were doing mostly like characters, props, and tileable textures. Um, so yeah,
Nice,
it was very interesting.
nice. So
And
yeah,
then
and yeah, then how went it on?
sort of project finish. I got like my contract finished as well, and I got some freelance work for a little bit, and then I decided that I always wanted to move, working in games, go somewhere else. So I ended up like applying to Splash Damage in the UK, and I went there to go and work for Gears of War, and yeah, spent like there 2 years working between the Gears of War Ultimate, the remaster, and then like Gears 4 multiplayer, just like doing maps for the multiplayer. That was what Splash Damage was doing back then. But yeah, it was a really good experience. Really like it. And then like technology kept evolving. Actually, that was been Painter, jumping substance, and there was a lot of buzz about it, and I started like messing around with it and still doing everything in Photoshop. So most of the
Hmm.
stuff in the Gears is all Photoshop. Um,
Crazy to
yeah,
imagine such a
yeah,
big game.
yeah. But like, I mean, at the end of the day, like simple stuff, if done correctly, it's just more
Exactly.
work, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of people, I remember, like when Quixel and Do came out, people were like, "Oh, this is gonna kill texturing," and I was like, "Nah." I didn't kill it, and jump into Painter is like completely, it's amazing because like the fact that you could paint in a 3D mesh with like all the maps at the same time, and I was like, "Fuck, this is good."
Yeah, crazy. I don't know, because for me this has always been the standard. I can't think of anything else, which is kind of weird to tell you that.
Yeah,
Because yeah, that has always been my status quo, right?
yeah. I mean, when you have it, then you don't think about it, right? But
Exactly. Yeah.
when you don't, and you
Yeah.
jump into that, I was like, "Oh fuck, this is so good. This is gonna make my life so much easier in that way."
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, and then from there, spent like 2 years there, as I said, and then moved to Sweden, and I've been here at Machine Games for like 7 years now. I joined as my role has changed as well. So I went from like specialist role to more of a generalist over time. So at the beginning, I was like doing textures, and then I was doing textures and props and sets, and then
Hmm.
I jumped to actually do like everything from. I mean, coming to Machine Games was really quite interesting because I got to do like level design, I got to do like blockouts, everything basically, levels fully, um,
Nice.
till
Yeah.
till today, basically. And then I got keep moving up a little bit, so now lead artist.
Crazy. That's cool. Man, you worked on my favorite gaming franchise, which is the Wolfenstein series. I really really like the whole look of it. I like the germification how of the world. Like
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting to see um,
yeah,
what you do with it on a creative basis. It's really really cool, like the design language and everything. Um, yeah, so you kind of went from a senior position to more of a lead position now. So maybe we can speak about that a bit. Are you still doing art, or are you only managing people? Well, like this is um, what I think of a lead artist. When I hear lead, it's always like, is he still an artist, or is he like a lead
mm, yeah.
doing yeah organization stuff or giving feedback, etc.
Well, that's a really good question. And I think it really depends on the people, and also depends on the size of the project, and depend as well on, like the teams and the company, right? But to answer you shortly, I do art like 50% of my time still. Like if I wouldn't be able to do that, I wouldn't be interested in a lead position, to be honest. And I know there's a lot of people who say like being a lead is, is a different job, which I do agree. It's different skills, it's different way of, it's basically managing a team and making sure that the team works. And lead art is what it does basically is just like making sure like all the stuff that is produced like has consistency, and also that like everybody's work is homogeneous in a way, so like everything looks the same and everything
Hmm.
looks like it belongs to the same game in a way.
The same quality. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then like being in between like the different departments, because a lead artist, or my role as I do it, is just like basically like being on top of like all the 3D departments that are involved in the creation of the game. And sometimes it's not only about like the quality of it and like providing feedback for like how is it going and all that, but like it's also about like trying to be a bridge between like different departments, establish the communication so everything flows in a in a better way. And yeah, it has a little bit of everything, but then at the same time I get, because of course it's me and I like to do stuff, I get to do a lot of things.
Hmm.
I'm still in love with like building, worlds and doing environment art, and or even props and stuff like that. So
That's cool.
at the end of the day, like in between meetings, there's days that you have like full day to actually work on stuff. Sometimes it's just like providing feedback. Sometimes it's just like doing an asset that somebody needs quickly, or like doing like a block out or a layout. That's probably one of the things that I enjoy the most, is like trying to provide like other departments help. For example, level design. I think and that's been not very looked. It's just like working with level designers. Sometimes they don't have like the same spatial vision as like artists do when it comes to create like the world, the spaces, like rooms, architecture, whatever it is. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's good to provide them with like, like visual explorations of the spaces that actually work with gameplay as well. So yeah, bit
Making
of
sure
everything.
everyone is happy and everyone can,
Yeah.
like, you kind of streamlining everything to get into the right direction.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
It's a very nice job at the end of the day, because it's, it's helping other people, and it's making sure that like the overall vision of the game goes somewhere.
Hmm.
When not from an art direction perspective, because we have an art director and we have a creative director for that. So they established like the pillars of like what the game is about and like how it should look visually. But when it comes to the execution, that's where we actually do the job. So
Nice. Yeah. So where do you then balance of like leading and managing a team, or and then giving them the creational freedom to kind of breathe the yeah the creativity that the team needs. So how do you balance that in the right way?
well, for me, it's very easy because, like, so I come from Spain. Like in Spain, the culture, the work culture, is something that I'm not particularly a fan of. Like things have changed now. Of course, it's been almost 10 years since I don't work in Spain, but like it comes from the perspective of like very micromanagement. You know, like just like telling people exactly what they need to do, um, and over time and over experience as well, like different studios and different countries, like each country has its own kind of, or each studio even has its own kind of way of doing things, and they end up here where like it is quite the opposite. It's micromanagement. It's more about like, you know, we need to make sure that the things are done, but like how you do it, it's up to you. And I like to you know, approach it that way. I like to make sure that people have the tools. Like when it comes to like, I don't know, software or methodologies or whatever, I don't care. I mean, that's not the important thing here. The important thing is like you produce stuff that is good, looks good, and works in the game. So yeah, I'm trying to give as much freedom to people as possible, honestly.
Yeah, and also I think you are in charge of the people that are work for you, so I think you give them the right. Yeah, you have trust in your artists. I would say, right?
Yes,
Because then
exactly.
they wouldn't work there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think like when you build this team of people who are self driven, who have like a lot of, you know, very proactive members of the team, that you need to do anything really. It's people are motivated. You know, I always say the same thing about
Yeah.
like when people when someone moans, for example, about like, oh, I got the worst level to work on. It's like there's not, you know, good and bad levels. It's what you made out of that level, how you
Mm-hmm.
can turn it into something that is interesting, or how you can focus yourself into elements that, you know, you never done before, and you know, you might find interesting, because doing the same thing again and again, I think is very boring in general.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
It's
it's
always
good to
demotivating.
change. Yeah, it's good to change, you know. And this the only, I mean, this is not only for like let's say build the same type of environments, but like skills as well. I think, in my opinion, like someone who's you know, like very proactive and always looking at different softwares and trying to learn stuff, you know, they're always going to be more motivated to keep going. While if you keep doing the same thing again and again, you're going to get like, oh yeah, the same, you know.
Yeah, and you always get then more. Yeah, you get more flexible artists that are capable of dealing with problems that come along the way, because
Exactly.
always throwing yourself into that position of like, yeah, trying out new things, maybe have another perspective of a problem, you kind of become a good problem solver, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, problem solving to me is just like environment artists are problem solvers. It's just like
Yeah.
when it comes to everything, when it comes to like how to interpret like a concept art and put it into like something that is in the game, scales, like how to you know, solve the problems that gameplay has sometimes, come up with solutions for that, or like performance as well,
Yeah.
or workflows as well.
Yeah.
So definitely environment art. I think it's all about like problem solving.
Yeah, because creating environment art, especially for video games that are really dependent on performance, they create a
Mm,
lots of problems, right?
I do, yeah.
Um, they need to look cool, but also they need to run smoothly. So this is already the biggest problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's so depending as well on the technology. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
like changing engines, for example. Like I think like some methodologies are completely useless in other engines, and like I have experienced that when like people come from other studios and they want to do things in a particular way, and sometimes it works because the engine supports that sort of way of doing it, but some other times it doesn't. You know, so it's it's very tricky to have that balance of like adapting, because that's the other thing. Like you move studios, you change engines, and you need to adapt, and you need to adapt not only to the technology but like the way that the studio does games, which is, you know, another completely different discussion. But
Yeah. Do you have your own engine, or are you using an external one like Unreal or something?
Machine Games uses eTech, which
Hmm.
is like the e original engine, and we share it with it. So they work with it for Doom, and
Mm-hmm.
we do the games that we do with it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, before our recording, we spoke about yeah, social media, art, like art portfolio sites, like ArtStation, for example. And you also said you want to like get away from like those pages, maybe create an external website on your own. So how do you feel about like this centralized art pages, like ArtStation, for example? Like, are they still mandatory?
Well, I don't know if I am the one to answer that question,
Hmm.
but
But yeah.
I have my opinions about it.
Sure.
Um,
I want to hear. I want to hear
uh,
them.
I think like the way things are going, one of the things that I've been seeing more and more is like, there's definitely nowadays more things in less hands, and like companies and keep growing and buying and
Mm,
accumulating.
mm,
And to me, for example, if we talk about our station, it was very weird that it got bought, and then I mean, like, it was a basically a hub of people, trying to do and show art at the end of the day. And it was in private hands for sure, but it wasn't in like interested private hands, let's say. And for me, it's just like there's been a lot of like very vague decisions that were not made, with like multiple things that have been happening, from like the war to, like, I don't know, the AI stuff. And it's all getting into like a very dramatic territory sometimes, where like I don't believe in intentions if they're not real. And like for me, like the most real thing to do is just like abandon it, like stop giving money to something that you don't believe in. And it's a bit of a
mm,
shame because, like,
yeah.
as I said, like, I've been very active on ArtStation. I think like ArtStation was really really good, and I think like to a certain degree it still holds well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's more about, that's one thing. But like if you think about it on the other hand, and like how you're exposed to social media, and like how the internet is a completely different place nowadays. I think like everything is very corporative, and everything is very social media orientated. And I wonder if with the things that we do, and of course it's very nice to actually show your art and show what you do, but it's weird. It's like, I don't know if you remember when everybody was using Pinterest for references,
Oh
and
yeah.
then everybody moved to pure ref.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So we went from like, oh, everything is online, to everything is in my computer again.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found like that transition super weird. But like it makes sense. And I feel the same nowadays with social media. Like I think there's so much, it's such a waste of time, and especially like it requires so much energy, and like being active or passive, because like that's the other thing with social media. I think like social
Mm-hmm.
media, like for most people, it's a passive thing. It's like
Yeah.
the
Passive
infinite scroll.
consumption. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you're not being active on it, um what is the point?
What is the point, or like where's the benefit?
Yeah, what's the benefit? You're just wasting time of your life that you could be
Mm.
spending with your family, or you could be doing something else. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
it is. Like
Yeah.
even modeling, you could be doing all the things instead of like browsing Facebook or Instagram, or even our station. It's just like nothing. Like, I think we're living in a time where like we have seen it everything already. I don't
Exactly. Yeah.
know. I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel about it, and everything kind of merges into one thing. Like our station is a really good
Absolutely.
example of that. Of
Mm.
of like the same type of hard surface, or the same type of like textures, or the same type of like um like cartoonish Unreal Engine scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So everything is kind of, in a way, is good, but in a way it's very good to be away from that as well. And to be fair, like I don't, I have a lot of friends who at the beginning they were like joking about it. It's like, oh yeah, let's see how you deal with that. And I think it's a very positive, for me it's been super positive
Mm-hmm.
overall.
Yeah. Yeah, now that I think about it, it makes complete sense. But if someone had told me 1 year ago, maybe you should delete your art station, I was like, what? This is like this is like how I get jobs at the moment.
Yeah.
Like I sent them my ArtStation portfolio because yeah, there is my stuff. There the people can see what I'm capable of. But
I think it
yeah.
still makes sense for, like, let's say freelancers. We were talking about these.
Mhm.
I got this friend that, well, we have a Spanish podcast about it, and a friend of mine, he's a freelance concept artist, and like all the attention that he gets to get new jobs, it's through our station, and
Mhm.
it makes total sense in that regard. Or the same with students, for example. Like, students need to be in a place where, like, like they can showcase their art, so they can actually access, even though, like, and I can speak for Sweden right now because how it works here. But like, at least in Sweden, like the schools do like events basically where they invite like all the studios to go around and check the
Yeah.
portfolios. So like you just like literally go and be like, okay, this person are interesting. Let's do it like an interview. So there's all the ways to actually do it. Um, and it doesn't mean like you need to be in centralized. I mean, to begin with, because like you don't own those images anymore in a way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
There are
yours.
art
Like,
stations now.
yeah, exactly. And then you can always, like, even if you're a student or if you are like whatever, like the best way always to get a job is to apply directly for the job. You send
Mhm.
it and have quality portfolio. But you can have it on your own. You can have it on Google Drive. You can have it on your own web page. Like, the medium doesn't matter. What matters is the content, I think. So
Yeah, ArtStation is just an easy, cheap way, right? Um, you don't
yeah,
need to build a website. You just upload your images. And it kind of looks like a portfolio, right?
yeah. I think it's great. Like the way they put it together, and the way that they manage to the switch between portfolio and regular page immediately without like having to do that many things. It was great. I
Mm.
think it's really really well designed, and everybody is used to it as well. So yeah, it's a good standard. And don't get me wrong, I think our station did a lot of things right. But for me, it's other reasons. It's not its functionality. And of course, I understand as well. I come from like a privileged perspective now that I have a job, that I've been working in the industry for a very long time.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
so in that regard, for me right now, it's not a need to have it.
yeah,
Um, but
yeah. You kind of have the history, you know.
yes, exactly.
It's lead artist at Machine Games. That's yeah. What else do I need to say, right? When applying for a job.
I mean, yeah, that applies to everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I always had the same thing with like students or like people who are juniors who start like working in studios that are like, you know very early days, or like studios that they don't feel like they doing great. But I always recommend the same. It's like, do a good job, because if you do a good job, I always like to bring up the Orb, Mikel Vicente
Hmm.
uh, example, because he was working for a studio in France that, well, most people didn't know about a game that most people didn't know about. But he came up with this fucking super sweet way of sculpting everything, because he was investing in his own style and his own methodologies and his look, and that shit becomes like so trendy. Like, went to Blizzard, and
There
it
you go.
yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't matter where you come from. If you do a good job, if you like read and consume like interesting things, not only our station. That's the other thing I feel. Our station can be very very bad. It's like, if you consume the same again and again, like, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
how's that going to
Um,
help you?
the 150th AK-47.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then we kind of adopt this. I don't know, this look maybe, or you don't get other perspectives on how to create a weapon maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I don't know. I don't think it's black or white. I think there's like so many different tones of gray to pick up from, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you like? you currently are building a website. Then, is there some advice maybe for artists or maybe also for students who are planning to build a website? What to include?
Well, I've been looking into the different options right now at the market,
Mm.
and I mean, most of them. I think one of the good thing about like websites that you pay, it's like they have everything. You can build yourself a blog, you can build yourself a shop, you can build anything. Um, when it comes to advice, I always say the same thing, especially for students. Is like you don't need that much content for a good portfolio. I think like for someone who's starting and wants to land a job in a good studio, they need to focus on quality, and quality sometimes is about like being smart, like scoping the projects that you do, and of course like being self-critical in terms of like what is the quality that I can provide. When it comes to like the content itself, I think like 2 or 3 projects is more than enough. I don't think you need more than that to like make someone say like, oh, this person is really good, like let's try to hire them or whatever. um, so focus on quality. Just do like 2 or 3 projects. Like if you're working on 3D props, then make sure you do like something complicated. Like something that is mechanical, something that is organic, something that is like you have a wide range of skills, and
Hmm.
always try to make sure that texturing skills are good, or like presentation as well. Like a lot of people underestimate like presenting their work, and presenting is like sometimes like almost like a third of the whole thing. um
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
Takes time.
yeah, it takes a lot of time.
i can
I
i
don't
can,
know.
I can give you a number there so people get it. When I've been like doing like portfolio screenshots for my own on Wolfenstein games, I usually take like a week, a full week. I'm not joking, to just go around and making sure that everything is presentable. I end up with like,
Crazy.
yeah, like last time it was like 1,000 screenshots, and I was like,
What?
yeah, it was like I need to reduce this, because then again, like I think like too many images is bad as well. Uh, people get bored eventually. There's 2 things that I'm not a huge fan of. It's like super huge portfolios, and then because like super long portfolios is like you're gonna keep scrolling forever, and like everything is gonna be, especially if you repeat like the same room from different angle or stuff like that. And having the, for example, breakdowns, I think is very necessary, like showing what you
Hmm.
done and how you done it. And I really like, or really appreciate, like when I see like textures being like step by step, for example, things that give you an understanding of that person knows how to texture something, how to layer something up in order to make it believable. And then the other thing I don't like is when people do art dumps as well. When they keep releasing every week one thing, I think
Yeah.
it fails to gain your attention. If you do it all at once, and it's like shit, it's like a feast almost. You go and you see it all, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. I really like how you did this and did this. But if you want me to keep, and I think this is very very kind of like LinkedIn mentality of like constantly keeping like the attention, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that is something that I feel is very exhausting from social media. But
Oh
I see,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like people just like self selling themselves without
Yeah.
a
All
need.
the time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because honestly, what is the need when you're working in a studio? Like you have a good job, you have a good portfolio, you have a good CV. Why do keep doing this? Again and
Mm.
again and again and again in that way, in like constantly selling ourselves constantly. It's good to have your own brand or your own name and people to know you and all that. But what is the limit? Every week releasing something, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how the whole industry, like as an artist, maybe changed a bit. Everyone thinks now this needs to be like yeah, this needs to be handled like an influencer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
um, Posting content all the time, getting the attention, getting the likes, getting the follows, getting the, yeah, getting all the visibility from the industry. And yeah, maybe this is also an ego thing, I don't know.
It could be. It could be.
Because like I'm sitting at my PC 12 hours a day, nobody's like telling me in real life you did a good job, you know. This is kind of weird sometimes because you just read the message, cool textures, I don't know. Maybe this is something we seek as an artist, because sometimes it can be a bit lonely,
Yeah.
if
It
you know
could
what I
be.
mean.
It could be. I mean, especially if you're a freelancer, yeah, that could be the case. But I just question, like, it's. I mean, I'm mostly talking from working in studio where like
Hmm,
you
yeah,
have
sure.
people around you, and like you get feedback from your leads and you get feedback from whoever, right? But like I also question, like, for example, like likes, and I also question like comments that don't add anything. It feels
Hmm,
like our station, for example, is a place for like, it's not a place for feedback because like job is done pretty much. It's not like Polycan where
yeah,
people were posting like their
or
riffs.
Discord.
Exactly, or Discord. I think Discord is way more positive in the way I'm involved in a couple of. I'm not involved, but like I've been active in a couple of communities in Discord, and I think it's a nicer way to like provide feedback, to be positive, to help someone to grow, to develop their skills, because like I see it constantly, and I'm a victim myself. Or I've been a victim myself of that. Of, oh, super nice, very nice job. It's like, what am I adding with that comment? You know,
Exactly, yeah.
what am I saying here? That I like your job? You already know I like your job. I gave you a like. But
Hmm.
like I'm not adding anything, and there's no like I tried a couple of times adding feedback to the comments, but like when the job is done, like most people don't want to like redo
They don't want
something.
to. They are so happy that they posted it, or like get
Yes,
get it finished, and then it
exactly.
gets destroyed again with a hundred of lines of feedback.
Brutal
They're
feedback.
like,
Yeah,
oh my god, boy, I need to rework everything. Nobody does that, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Imagine like that brutal art station where like you post your work and then people will destroy it.
Yeah, yeah. Are you still like doing personal stuff? Like, do you still find the time?
Yeah. I'm trying to focus on other things at the moment. Not so much about like digital stuff in terms of like creating assets and stuff like that. But I'm modeling quite a lot for 3D printing.
Ah,
So
nice.
yeah, so like try to do some other things that are not directly related to what I do every day, because like I like to sketch stuff. I do sketch a lot of things at home.
Hmm.
Like especially super art sketches. That's something that I really really like because I'm quite quick with it, and then I can come up with an idea. And when I'm getting to the point where like after 2 3 days, well, I'm bored of the concept itself already. Like my whole thing was like try to explore a shape or try to explore like how to do this. I'm not fully interested in going through the full execution because like I have my job for that, and I
Yeah,
spend I
sure.
spend there like 40 hours a week. So there's not much motivation for me to actually finish things at home, but
Hmm.
learn from the process, which is great. But with 3D printing, that is you need to finish the process. So currently, for example, I've been doing a lot of, and this is very weird, right? But I've been buying like Hot Wheels
Uh-huh.
and
The
just,
little toy cars, right?
yeah, the toy cars, yeah,
Hmm.
and just modeling parts to like modify them and do like post-apocalyptical cars instead. So
Nice.
basically, yeah, so basically building stuff that then you print, but like you realize then like there's other things to keep in mind when it comes to scales. For example, when you print things that are so little, and then you have to be more chunky, and I don't know, it has its own things. And then when you print it like as well, that is something when you do like digital art, I don't think you you realize. But when you print something that you have done, you have created with your own like fucking software or whatever, it's it's completely different thing. Like the physicality of it, having it
You
in your
can hold
hands.
it,
Yeah, exactly. It's
touch
like,
it,
well,
go
I
over
did
it.
I did
I
this.
did that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Okay, so is there any benefit from it, or are you kind of looking for something in that, or just doing that for fun? Like,
I'm doing it for fun.
okay.
I'm just doing it for fun. Like,
So is there any takeaway? Like, is there something you wouldn't have thought before doing that? Like, is there
mm,
something new thing you kind of discovered?
being practical. Yeah.
Uh huh.
Sometimes, especially with the work what we do in games, it's very, either long or it takes forever, and it needs to be super good quality. For example, with like stuff like 28 millimeters miniatures, you need to be very practical because like most of the detail is not going to be seen. So like you have to focus on what is important, like hierarchies. Um, and that
Mm-hmm.
is the best part in my opinion, because like then you don't worry too much about like doing too many details that are not going to be seen, but you
Just do
focus
them.
on shapes. Yeah,
Mm,
you just focus on that, on shapes and readability of shapes and stuff like that.
nice. Cool. All right. What, like, when you take a look at, let's go back to the portfolio maybe a bit. If you
Hmm.
take a look at a portfolio, what are the things that you are first looking at? Like, is there something that's really important for you? You already mentioned like having a bit of a variability and different kind of props. Is there something else you would add to it?
Well, yeah, I mean, as I said before, like not too many things, breakdowns, an understanding. Like when someone checks your portfolio, you need to be you need to make sure that you're aiming for the right thing as well. In terms of like, oh, I want to be an environment artist, so I'm going to see environments. I'm not going to see a concept of a cat and then like a character and then like her surface model of a wheel. It's like, what do you want to do? Like, if you apply for a job, just make sure that your portfolio reflects that. Um, and and to me, like the portfolio is only a small part of it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so especially when you're a junior, when you want to get like an internship or whatever, the portfolio is just like it's just to catch the attention of like a potential new employer. Important thing for me, it's what comes after it, because like the portfolio, you can comment on it and be like, okay, I like this work, I like how you do it, but
Yeah.
maybe like you're gonna get a couple of questions out of your portfolio, and like some of them everybody knows what are they gonna be like. What will you change now? Or can I give you feedback on these?
The classic
Yeah,
questions. Yeah.
exactly. It's just like it's so overused. It's so fucking cliche in a way that it makes sense that like the questions are focused on other things that are not portfolio related. So what I mean is like I think there's a lot of things that are related to an interview that are more important than a portfolio. Portfolio is
Mm-hmm.
just like, yeah, your presentation card. Here I am, this is my name, this is what I do, I would like to work with you. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the interview, that process is as important or even more than the portfolio, I would say, because that's when you know the person. That's when you
Yeah.
put
The
like,
character.
yeah, exactly, the character, and that's when the studio can tell like if they want to work with this person, like if this person is someone that could fit into the team and it could fit into the mentality as well. Well, because not everybody feels or thinks the same way or works the same way, so it's crucial
Yeah.
to be very you know very specific as like as an interviewer, like about like what you want to check from that candidate particularly. But yeah, I think people need definitely to to put some effort into like how they communicate themselves, like how
Mm-hmm.
they, especially if you're young and just like out of school, and this is a job and it might be a job or not. It really depends on how you behave, how you present yourself, like all that.
Yeah. Like skills like critical thinking, how you how
Yeah,
you kind of see your own work, like self-evaluation and stuff.
yeah. Honestly, the most important. This is my opinion, but like the most important skill for me, it's well, two more important: is communication, one,
Hmm.
and then self criticism. I think self
Yeah.
criticism, like if you have it in you, it's the tool that will enable you to progress.
Yeah.
Like even if you're a student, if you're self-critical, if you can evaluate your work, put it with next to studio work or portfolio, and be like, what is missing? That
Mm.
is the thing that's going to drive you forward and like going to make you better. And but that is very difficult to acquire. Like some people have it naturally, some people can train them.
Mm.
But yeah, those two.
It's
Yeah,
so funny to like think about it, because at the like when I started out 6 years ago, the whole industry was telling you learn your hard skills, learn your make have a good portfolio. Portfolio is key. You don't need anything, any qualification. Portfolio, portfolio, portfolio. And we speak about like things that you can't just learn. Like you can learn them, but you need to kind of develop them in a way that you can't develop a portfolio, right?
yeah,
You kind of This is more kind of really philosophical, like critical thinking. Like you this is always good in life, not just for
yeah.
a like hard surface artist position at a games company. This is also good for relationships, for yeah.
It's a survival skill.
Exactly. Like, what can I do better, or where did I do something wrong? And yeah, it's really. How
Yeah,
did you
because
learn that? Like, maybe we can speak about that. How did you become a critical thinker?
well, I wouldn't say becoming a critical thinker, but like,
Yeah, yeah. But how did you learn the skill? Like,
well,
because as
I
indie
think
artist, especially.
there's multiple things that I think are related there, like your family education, your interest as a as a teenager, or as a like what you have seen or watch, or like all sort of like cultural influence that you can get. But then again, like your friendships and everything. But when it comes to self-evaluation, which is critical sense is one thing, and self-evaluation might be a completely different one. I can give you a concrete answer to you,
Mm-hmm.
which is like it's funny, but I was a teenager. I was like 16 years old, and I was trying to learn Photoshop, and I was like checking tutorials and like, oh, how do I do this? And it was back in the day when like forums were quite a thing, and everybody wanted to have their own like signature, like personalized signature. And I was like, okay, this might be like the best way to actually learn Photoshop if I do like free signatures for forums I was in. And so I started like doing that, and then people were starting like say, like, oh, I like this, and
Mm-hmm.
you kind of develop like a sense of like what people think is good and what people think is not good, and then you see what other people were doing at the same time, and you were comparing yourself, and it's like, how can I create something new, how can I bring something new to the table? And it's as silly as like creating signatures for like a forum. But but that was the first time when I was aware of like, I might actually have a skill for this, so I might actually be able, I might actually have something in my skill set that kind of makes me feel that I could do a living out of that. So it's the same with the when I started like messing around with motion graphics. It was the same. It's just like checking some tutorials, and then I did a couple of tests, and with that I presented it, and I was like, "Oh, you want to do the whole TV channel, like motion graphics?" And I was like, "Oh wow, that's a bit more than I thought it would be." But it's the if you have initiative, and if you have like trained eye in terms of like looking around you and see what's good and what's not, that is the most important thing. I don't know, it's a skill that is, I would say, is 50-50. Like you can have
Mm-hmm.
some of it, and then also you can learn a lot of it. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's always the right balance, because sometimes you can be overthinking. Like to think of yourself, I'm a failure and everything I touch is wrong. Every application that I send um, gets refused. Because yeah, on the other side, you need to think of yourself. What am I capable of? Like, what can I do? It's kind of finding the right balance.
And that's a very healthy approach as well. I mean,
Mm,
that's usually the approach that I have. Every time I start something, I have no clue of what I'm going to do, like,
mm,
or how it's going to turn out at the end. And like, in my opinion, being humble with your feet on the ground, like, be like, oh, let's see what happens, and then trust your gut and your intuition and your experience, of course, to go through that. Because I mean, I can give you another example of this. Before I came to Machine Games, I had zero experience doing hard surface environments. Zero.
mm-hmm.
I literally had no clue how to do that.
Yeah.
But then you come to the studio and you start doing things, because I was always more focused on organic stuff, which it was more of my interest. But then hard surface was like, okay, this is interesting. Oh, Machine Games, I guess I'm going to work on something that is hard surface. And that's exactly what I did since I joined. But then again, it's like I have no clue. Or level design, I had no experience at level designing. I was like, oh, you need to design the whole path for the player in this part of the level. And that was one of my first tasks. And I was like, okay, I guess I've played a lot of games already. I have a bit of critical sense of it's good as well if you're able to. And sometimes it's as simple as writing the points down in a list, like bullet points, like putting your thoughts in order. Basically, it's like, what is important to do this or to achieve this, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have people around you as well. Like I think like one of the things that you can learn the most in these senses is like you're asking people who have experience and who have done this before. And if you ask them, you will learn as well. Surround you with people who are very capable. That is super important, I think. But definitely
Yeah.
having the feeling of like I have no clue of what I'm doing when you start doing something, it's super good, because it always puts you in a position of like you're gonna try your best. I mean, if you come from the perspective of like, I'm gonna kill it, like, are you? you know, if you
Yeah.
start if you start from zero, like there's always like a room for like getting better. But like if you think like you're good, then I think you're wrong. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's always finding a good sweet spot between, yeah, not to underestimate yourself, and but also like stay humble and yeah, know what you need to work on and know what you need to improve.
yeah, I agree. I think when you mention that, I want to make sure that it's clear that you shouldn't underestimate yourself in terms of like selling yourself. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe sometimes it's a very cultural thing as well. I mean, again, like going back to my own personal thing, I'm from Spain. Like we are very humble in general, even though like they're really really good game artists in Spain all over the world. I mean,
Hmm.
we literally have a podcast about this, so we
Yeah.
bring people from all over the world that are working on like top notch studios, and to make sure that people understand that like it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what language you use, or what kind of like mentality you have. You can always be good, and you can always be great at doing something if you try hard enough. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
don't underestimate yourself, especially not when it comes to salary, and especially when it comes to like conditions and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
if you're decent, you're gonna get whatever you want. So
Yeah. How would you say to, speaking of salary and yeah, how would you say, would you, or what would you tell young students to when going into the games industry? Because for lots of students, they just want to get the job and they want to just get into the industry, and they don't care about how much they get paid, and they really sell themselves short. How would you say young students should approach this, yeah, in the interview process maybe?
yeah, that's a good question actually. I think like to begin with. I mean, I don't think in general like money is a good motivation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because like I had like some really economical, offers to work for like this or that. In terms of like, like how much do you want to earn? It's like, no, I'm definitely not interested as much as in money. Of course, like I like to make money as anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd rather like earn less money and work in something that I like and I enjoy my everyday. And I feel like, okay, I could do this for years rather than like, work on a project that will pay you super well. And then it will become a nightmare in terms of like, how do you wake up every day to work on that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With students, it's difficult because like you don't know what to expect. But like I would say the first thing is like information, of course. Like try to make sure that you understand like how much they're paying. I think nowadays, like maybe back in the day, like things were a bit different. Nowadays, I think you can be very honest and be like, how much you paying for this position, in the interview, um, and also like do your own, homework and search like Glassdoor. There's multiple tools for doing that. Glassdoor is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, like if you know someone, like it's always the best way. If you know someone or nowadays like with Discord, like you can ask anyone, you can ask people in the industry, but like, hey, how much should I ask in this studio? Like how much they're paying in France, how much they're paying in Canada, what's the average, how much do I need to survive? So you can reach out to people to know exactly what companies are offering.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I think it's more about the balance of like, rather than focusing on the money, make sure you make enough money and you work for a studio that you want to work for. Um, and that is very difficult as well to know. I think that's even more difficult than knowing how much you're gonna earn, because when there's this conception of like studios, especially if you're an avid player, where like you play the game and you think, oh, it's gonna be great to work on this. Then the reality of development is completely different.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
studios to play their games, and there are studios to
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 work on
work
these
on their
games.
games. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Uh,
Yeah.
so sometimes that conception gets a bit mixed, and people end up having like first experience like being completely frustrated and stuff like that.
Yeah. This is really, really big what you're saying. I kind of get the feeling now, having worked on more and more games. I kind of get the feeling of you kind of you. I don't know. You're really really excited when you work on your first video games, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, I made it. I made this, and now the more and more I worked on these games, they are just projects. Like this sounds super stupid, but they just projects. This is just I do my job. I get paid for it. I create the meshes. I do my best I can do. That, that yeah, no way around it. But they are projects. They
yeah,
are not this fancy video games that you have your childhood memories with. They
yeah,
are projects. You need to create the stuff that is needed for this video game to succeed.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Like it's inevitable to think about work as work after
Hmm.
years working. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter like how long you've been working. It can be one project, can be two projects, but after a while you realize like you're getting paid for doing it. And it doesn't mean like you don't need to enjoy it. You need to enjoy it. That's what I'm saying. And in enjoying, like money is not always like the key for like enjoying the project, I would say.
True. Yeah.
I think there's, for me, like the two more important things about like working in a place is the team, who I'm going to be working, who I'm going to be sharing the experience with. And this is something that if you're new, or you don't know the studio, it's very difficult to understand. But when you're inside a studio and you work with the same people for multiple projects, and like you work very well with them, that is something that you end up appreciating. It's like, this is what I like. I like working here because like the team and the people who work here, and that is for me very valuable when it comes to appreciating a job or like a role in a studio,
Yeah.
which is not always like said, but I think it's crucial. Like you have a healthy positive, and people who are willing to give their best in order to do a good job. Because if you land up like in a studio like that, you're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna learn, like everything, when it comes to like technical stuff, when it comes to like artistic values, when it comes to so many things. And then the other thing I do think is crucial, it's art direction.
Yeah.
Being involved. I mean, I'm very interested in like the art aspect of making games and how games can differentiate themselves from others. There's a reason why you like Wolfenstein, because it's
Hmm.
it's very unique. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone else is doing this sort of stuff
Yeah.
apart from like maybe a couple of other games. But you see Wolfenstein, it's Wolfenstein, and
Exactly.
that's exactly one of the reasons why I came here. It's like I really like what you guys do, so I want to work for you. Of course, playing
Hmm.
the game as well. But art direction, to me, is crucial, because like there's so many studios nowadays that are doing generic stuff, that when you end up like in a studio that like do something that is very iconic, that it has like a vision, that is very difficult to find. And those studios, in my opinion, are the best studios always.
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
I think Gears of War is another good example of that. You don't even realize like how iconic Gears of War is until you, or maybe you have played it, but like when you work on a Gears of War game, it's like, yeah, this is, I mean, like what Epic created back then was amazing, like visionary for
Yeah.
its time. So
Yeah. That's true. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think you gave a great insight of what being a lead artist at Machine Games is, and also we spoke about social media as a whole, and maybe some some good tips how to see yourself as an artist, and yeah, present yourself in the in the white spaces of internet without maybe ArtStation or this art centralized pages. So thank you so much for your time, and I will also link your your not your portfolio but your podcast.
I can
So
put it around. Yeah,
yeah,
it's in Spanish though. That's the only thing.
to all my Spanish people out there, feel free to check it out.
I'm pretty sure there must
Yeah,
be some.
yeah, absolutely,
uh,
absolutely.
just want to
Like,
say thank you for the invitation as well.
you're
And
welcome.
again, these are my opinions. They don't mean that they're
Sure,
right.
sure. They are your own, and you can keep them. um, yeah, thank you so much. It was a fantastic talk. I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
I hope we speak soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Take care.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.